Hello everyone, welcome to 10-Minute Physiology. Before this video begins, this video was based upon a class lecture delivered in November to December of 2020. Therefore, some of the cellular mechanisms that we will go through may have been changed and or updated since then. So please always check with your professor's lecture notes, assigned textbook readings, and or recent peer-reviewed and reputable scientific papers first. So with that out of the way, let's get on to the video. Hello everyone, welcome to 10-Minute Physiology. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, specifically about ANGII today. So with that, let's give it a go. So the first thing that I would like to do is give you a brief overview of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. So the first important player is going to be angiotensinogen. So angiotensinogen is a protein that is produced by the liver. Angiotensinogen then can be converted into angiotensin 1 by the enzyme renin. Angiotensin 1 then can be converted into angiotensin 2 by angiotensin converting enzyme or ACE. And then ANGII can stimulate the release of aldosterone. So in this video, we're mainly going to be focusing upon how ANGII is going to affect sodium reabsorption along the length of the nephron. So before you go any further in this video, I highly recommend that if you don't know the cellular mechanisms as to how sodium is reabsorbed along the length of the nephron, I highly advise that you go to my other videos in this playlist where I go into detail as to how sodium is reabsorbed in each region of the nephron. So with that out of the way, let's now go into the contents of this video. So the first region that we're going to look at is going to be the proximal tubule. So we're first going to take a look and see how ANGII increases sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule. So the first thing to note is that on the basolateral membrane, we have the AT1 receptor. So the AT1 receptor is a receptor that can bind to ANGII. So when ANGII binds to this receptor, it activates the GQ protein. So the GQ protein will then activate phospholipase C, and then phospholipase C will produce IP3 and DAG. So DAG will then activate another enzyme called protein kinase C. And then protein kinase C is going to have a number of different effects. So the first thing that it will do is it will increase the activity of the sodium-potassium pump. This allows the sodium-potassium pump to move more sodium into the interstitial space from the cytosol. So by increasing the activity of this pump, we increase the amount of sodium reabsorption that takes place. In addition, protein kinase C also increases the activity of the sodium bicarbonate cotransporter, allowing this cotransporter to move more sodium from the cytosol into the interstitial space. And then lastly, protein kinase C increases the activity of NHE3, or the sodium hydrogen exchanger. This allows this exchanger to bring more sodium from the tubule lumen into the cell. In addition, on the basolateral membrane, we also have another AT1 receptor that is coupled to a GI protein. So when angiotensin 2 binds to this AT1 receptor, it activates the GI protein, which inhibits the enzyme adenylate cyclase. This causes the amount of cyclic AMP in the cell to decrease. This decreased cyclic AMP will inhibit the enzyme protein kinase A, and when protein kinase A is inhibited, this activates the NHE3 protein. So by activating the NHE3 protein, this allows the NHE3 protein to bring in more sodium from the tubule lumen, therefore increasing sodium reabsorption. Now on the apical membrane, we also have AT1 receptors. However, the majority of these AT1 receptors will be coupled to the GQ protein. So when angiotensin 2 binds to these receptors, the GQ protein is activating, allowing the phospholipase to be activated, which produces diacylglycerol, which therefore activates protein kinase C, leading to the downstream effects. So in summary, ANGII can increase sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule. It can increase the activity of the sodium hydrogen exchange protein on the apical membrane, and it can increase the activity of the sodium-potassium pump and the sodium bicarbonate co-transporter on the basolateral membrane. So in addition to the stimulatory effects of angiotensin II on sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule, angiotensin II can also inhibit sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule. So the main way that it's going to do this is again through the AT1 receptor. However, in this case, this AT1 receptor is coupled to a GS protein. So when angiotensin II binds to this AT1 receptor, it activates the GS protein, which then activates adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase causes an increase in the level of cyclic AMP in the cell, and this increase in cyclic AMP increases the activity of protein kinase A. Now, when the activity of protein kinase A is increased, this inhibits NHE3. As a result, NHE3 brings in less sodium into the cell, therefore decreasing sodium reabsorption. Now, another type of receptor that we see in the proximal tubule is the AT1 receptor. However, it's coupled to an unknown G protein. So when angiotensin II binds to these receptors, what happens is that these G proteins cause an increase in a number of different molecules. This includes arachidonic acid, nitric oxide, heats, and eats. All of these molecules will basically inhibit the sodium-hydrogen exchange protein, therefore causing this protein to decrease the amount of sodium that is brought into the cell. So Ang2 can also decrease sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule. It can decrease the activity of the NHE3 on the apical membrane. So now let's move to the next region where angiotensin II can exert its effects, and this will be on the thick ascending limb of Henle. So in the thick ascending limb of Henle, we have AT1 receptors. However, these particular AT1 receptors are going to be coupled to GQ proteins. So when angiotensin II binds to the AT1 receptor, this activates the GQ protein, which will therefore lead to an increase in DAG and therefore an increase in the activity of protein kinase C. Protein kinase C will then increase the activity of NKCC2. This allows this co-transporter to bring more sodium from the tubule lumen into the cell. Another effect of the AT1 receptor is it can increase the activity of NADPH oxidase. NADPH oxidase can produce peroxide, which will also increase the activity of NKCC2. So Ang2 can increase sodium reabsorption in the thick ascending limb of Henle by binding to the AT1R. It can increase the activity of NKCC2 and increase the number of NKCC2 transporters in the apical membrane. So in addition to the AT1 receptor, we also have the AT2 receptor. The AT2 receptor, in this case, can bind to Ang2. However, its effects are going to be different than the AT1 receptor. So when Ang2 binds to the AT2 receptor, this causes an increase in nitric oxide inside the cytosol. This nitric oxide will then inhibit NKCC2, therefore decreasing the amount of sodium that is brought into the cell. So Ang2 can decrease sodium reabsorption in the thick ascending limb by binding to AT2R. It can decrease the activity of NKCC2, and this inhibitory effect acts as a brake on the stimulatory effect. So the next region that we're going to look at is going to be the distal convoluted tubule. So how does angiotensin II affect the distal convoluted tubule? Well, on the basolateral membrane, we have the AT1 receptor. And this AT1 receptor, when it binds to Ang2, will cause the activation of specific WNK kinases. These specific WNK kinases will have two effects. So the first effect is that they are going to increase the implantation of inactivated sodium chloride cotransporters into the apical membrane. So in other words, they increase the number of sodium chloride cotransporters in the membrane. However, in order to activate these sodium chloride cotransporters, we need another protein. And this protein is going to be SPAC and OSR1. So WNK kinases will activate SPAC and OSR1 proteins, and the SPAC and OSR1 proteins will phosphorylate these inactivated sodium chloride cotransporters, which will therefore cause them to be activated. And when these sodium chloride cotransporters are activated, this will allow sodium and chloride to be brought into the cell. So what we saw here is that angiotensin 2 can increase sodium reabsorption in the distal convoluted tubule. It does this by activating certain WNK kinases, and then these WNK kinases have two effects. They can increase the activity of SPAC and OSR1 proteins, which allows them to phosphorylate sodium chloride cotransporters, therefore increasing their activity. In addition, these WNK kinases can also increase the insertion of new sodium chloride cotransporters into the apical membrane. So in other words, angiotensin 2 increases the activity of sodium chloride cotransporters and increases their number, therefore increasing sodium reabsorption in the distal convoluted tubule. So on the basolateral membrane, in the collecting ducts, in the epithelial cells of the collecting ducts, we have the AT1 receptor. The AT1 receptor, when activated, will cause a cascade of events, which results in the increase in the insertion of ENaC channels in the apical membrane. So in other words, when the AT1 receptor is activated, this will increase the implantation of ENaC channels into the apical membrane. In addition, the AT1 receptor will also increase the activity of protein kinase C. Protein kinase C will then increase the activity of NADPH oxidase, which will therefore produce peroxide. And then peroxide will increase the open probability of ENaC channels. This means that any specific ENaC channel will have a greater probability of being open, so therefore it will allow more sodium to flow into the cytosol. So in other words, ANG2 can increase sodium reabsorption in the collecting ducts. It does this by increasing ENaC insertion and by producing peroxide, which increases the open probability of ENaC channels. So that's it for this video. I hope this video helped you understand how ANG2 affects sodium reabsorption along the length of the nephron. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.